Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking at the hologram floating in front of him. The blue planet called Earth spun slowly in the display. It looked so small and harmless. He could not understand why the High Command had sent his entire fleet to deal with such a weak world. "Sir, we have finished studying the planet," said his second officer, Captain Veltar. "The beings there are very primitive. They have only basic rockets and simple weapons, no energy shields, no faster-than-light travel. Their strongest weapons use chemical explosives." Kethvar laughed. In his 40 years of military service, he had conquered hundreds of worlds for the Zephyrian supremacy. His fleet of 500 warships had destroyed entire star systems. Each of his ships was over 3 miles long and carried enough firepower to crack a planet in half. The humans had nothing that could even scratch the paint on his smallest vessel. "How boring," he said. "The Supremacy sends the 47th Conquest Fleet to deal with children playing with toys." The Zephyrian Supremacy ruled 40,000 star systems. For 500 years, they had been the strongest force in the galaxy. No species had ever defeated them in battle. Most worlds surrendered the moment they saw a Supremacy fleet. The few that fought back were crushed within hours. Kethvar walked to the main viewing screen. In the distance, he could see the other ships in his fleet. Massive dreadnoughts with weapons that could destroy cities. Fast attack cruisers that moved like deadly shadows. Support ships carrying enough troops to occupy a dozen worlds. The humans had never seen anything like this. "Sir, we are receiving radio signals from the planet," reported the communications officer. "They are trying to talk to us." "Put it on the main speakers," Kethvar ordered. A human voice filled the bridge. The words were strange and clumsy, but the translator made them clear. "Unknown vessels, this is Earth Defense Command. Please identify yourselves. We wish for peaceful contact." The bridge crew laughed. Earth Defense Command? What could they possibly defend against? Their strongest military units were metal vehicles that crawled on the ground. Their flying machines were slow and weak. They had no space warships at all. "Open a channel," Kethvar commanded. "This is Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Supremacy 47th Conquest Fleet. Your world is now under our control. Surrender immediately, and your deaths will be quick." There was a long silence from Earth. Then the human voice spoke again. We don't understand. We want peace. Why are you threatening us?" Kethvar smiled. They were already begging. This would be easier than he thought. "Because you exist in space that belongs to the Supremacy. You will surrender your world and serve our empire, or we will destroy you. You have 1 hour to decide." He cut the transmission and turned to his officers. "Begin the intimidation display. I want every ship to charge their weapons. Let them see what real power looks like." Across the fleet, massive energy weapons began to glow. The ships moved into attack formation. Their hulls gleamed with deadly purpose. Any civilization would be terrified by such a display of force. But Admiral Kethvar did not know that humans had been watching the galaxy for much longer than anyone realized. Deep in hidden bases on Earth's moon and scattered through the asteroid belt, other humans were having very different conversations. Commander Sarah Chen sat in a control room buried deep beneath the lunar surface. Around her, dozens of technicians worked at advanced computer stations. The room hummed with energy from machines that the Supremacy would not understand. "Ma'am, the alien fleet has moved past Jupiter," reported Lieutenant Wong. "All ships are showing standard Zephyrian energy signatures. No unusual weapons or defenses." Chen nodded. For 50 years, humanity had been preparing for this day. They had found crashed alien ships and studied their technology. They had listened to Supremacy communications and learned about their empire. Most importantly, they had developed weapons and defenses that worked on principles the aliens had never imagined. "How many ships?" she asked. 500 capital ships, sir. Standard Supremacy Conquest Fleet." Chen almost felt sorry for them. The Zephyrians thought they were so advanced, so powerful. They believed their energy shields and plasma weapons made them unbeatable. They had no idea that human scientists had discovered how to manipulate the basic forces that held the universe together. "Begin Phase 1, she ordered. "Launch the sensor." Rockets. On Earth's surface, ancient chemical rockets lifted off from launch pads around the world. To any observer, they looked like desperate attempts to fight back with primitive weapons. The Zephyrian fleet barely noticed them, but these rockets carried no weapons. Instead, they held the most advanced scanning equipment humans had ever built. As they flew toward the alien fleet, they mapped every ship, analyzed every energy pattern, and identified every weakness. The data flowed back to Chen's command center in seconds. Quantum computers processed the information and created detailed battle plans. Every Zephyrian ship now had a target painted on it by weapons they could not detect. "Ma'am, Admiral Harrison is requesting permission to make contact," said Wong. Chen smiled. It was time for the aliens to meet the real human military. "Patch him through." On the main screen, Admiral Harrison appeared. He was an older man with gray hair and cold eyes. Behind him, Chen could see the bridge of humanity's most advanced warship. The Zephyrians had no idea it existed. "This is Admiral Harrison of the Terran Defense Fleet," he said in a calm voice. "Commander Chen, are we ready?" "All weapon platforms are online, sir. Dark matter cannons are charged. Quantum torpedo bays are loaded. Gravitational distortion fields are active." Harrison nodded. "Then let's introduce ourselves to our guests." Back on the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Kethvar was growing impatient. The human rockets had flown past his fleet without attacking. They seemed to be heading toward the outer planets, probably trying to run away. "Sir, we are receiving another transmission from Earth," said the communications officer. "Put it on screen." This time, instead of a frightened human voice, a clear image appeared. A human in a military uniform stood on what was clearly the bridge of a warship. Behind him, advanced technology gleamed. "This is Admiral Harrison of the Terran Defense Fleet," the human said. "You have entered our system without permission. You have threatened our world. You have one chance to leave peacefully." Kethvar stared at the image. The background looked like the bridge of an advanced starship, but that was impossible. The humans had no such technology. "This is some kind of trick," he said to his officers. "They are trying to fool us with fake images." But as he spoke, his sensor officer's face went pale. "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. They're everywhere." Kethvar looked at his sensors. For the first time in his career, he felt a cold touch of fear. The energy readings were impossible. Nothing should be able to generate that much power without being detected. "Where are these readings coming from?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. The sources are hidden somehow. Our sensors can't get a clear lock." Admiral Harrison's voice continued from the communication screen. "You have 10 seconds to begin your withdrawal. After that, we will consider you a hostile force." Kethavar's pride would not let him back down. "You dare threaten the supremacy? We have 500 warships. You have nothing but empty words." Harrison looked sad. "Then you have made your choice." The transmission ended. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then every alarm on the Zephyrian flagship began to scream at once. The Zephyrian fleet moved closer to Earth like a pack of metal wolves. Admiral Kethvar watched the blue planet grow larger on his screens. Soon his ships would be close enough to demonstrate their power. A few destroyed cities would make the humans understand their situation. "Sir, the human rockets are still flying toward the outer planets," reported his tactical officer. "Should we destroy them?" Kethvar waved his hand dismissively. "Let them run. Those pathetic chemical rockets cannot hurt us. Focus on the planet. I want to see their military installations." What the Admiral did not know was that those rockets were not running away. They were taking very detailed pictures of his entire fleet. Advanced cameras and sensors built by human scientists recorded everything about the Zephyrian ships. Their size, their weapons, their shield frequencies, even the way their engines worked. Deep inside a hidden base on the far side of Earth's moon, Commander Sarah Chen watched the data flow across her screens. The information was being processed by quantum computers that could think faster than any biological brain. "Target analysis complete," announced Dr. Martinez, the chief scientist. "We have identified the command structure of their fleet. The largest ship in the center is their flagship. If we remove it first, the others will be confused." Chen nodded. The plan was working perfectly. For decades, humans had studied every piece of alien technology they could find. Crashed ships, broken equipment, even intercepted communications had taught them about supremacy technology. The aliens used energy shields and plasma weapons. They were powerful, but they followed rules that humans had learned to break. "What about their defenses?" Chen asked. "Standard energy barriers," replied Dr. Martinez. "They protect against heat, radiation, and kinetic impacts, but they cannot stop our dark matter weapons. Their shields work by deflecting energy and matter. Dark matter passes right through." Chen smiled. The Zephyrians thought they understood physics. They had built their empire using the same basic technologies for centuries. But humans had discovered things that went beyond normal matter and energy. They had learned to use the invisible forces that held galaxies together. "Status report on our weapon platforms," she ordered. Lieutenant Wong checked his displays. "All dark matter cannons are online and targeted. Quantum torpedo launchers are loaded and ready. Gravitational distortion generators are spinning up to full power." The weapon platforms were hidden throughout the solar system. Some were built inside asteroids that looked like ordinary rocks. Others were concealed in the shadows of planets and moons. A few were actually invisible, using technology that bent light around them. Each platform carried weapons that could destroy entire fleets. The dark matter cannons fired streams of invisible particles that could pass through any known shield. When these particles hit normal matter, they caused it to simply disappear. Not explode, not melt, just cease to exist. The quantum torpedoes were even more deadly. They traveled through folded space, appearing directly inside enemy ships without having to cross the distance between. Each torpedo contained enough antimatter to destroy a city, but the most terrifying weapons were the gravitational distortion generators. These machines could make gravity itself into a weapon. They could create black holes, crush ships with invisible force, or tear them apart with gravitational waves. "Ma'am, Admiral Harrison is ready to make contact," reported the communications officer. Chen looked at the main screen. The Zephyrian fleet was now passing Mars. They would be in Earth's orbital space within hours. It was time to give them one. Last chance. "Connect me to Admiral Harrison." The screen showed the bridge of the TDS Prometheus, humanity's most advanced warship. Admiral Harrison stood at the command station, his gray hair neat and his uniform crisp. Behind him, his crew worked. At stations filled with technology the Supremacy had never seen. "Commander Chen, are your people ready?" Harrison asked. "All weapon platforms report ready, sir. We can engage at your command." Harrison looked sad. "I had hoped they would be more reasonable. Send the warning." The transmission beam reached the Zephyrian flagship in seconds. Admiral Kethvar saw a human in a military uniform appear on his main screen. The background showed the bridge of what looked like an advanced starship, but that had to be fake. The humans could not have built such technology. "This is Admiral Harrison of the Terran Defense Fleet," the human said. "You have entered our system without permission. You have threatened our world. You have one chance to leave peacefully." Kethvar laughed. "Terran Defense Fleet? You mean those rockets we saw flying away? This is obviously some kind of recording made in a fake room. You cannot fool us with lies." But even as he spoke, his sensor operators were reporting strange readings. Energy signatures were appearing all over the system. Massive amounts of power were being generated by sources they could not identify. "Sir, these readings don't match any known technology," reported his chief scientist. "The power levels are impossible. Nothing should be able to generate this much energy without massive installations." Kethvar ignored the reports. His pride would not let him believe that primitive humans could threaten the mighty supremacy. "Continue the advance. Prepare to demonstrate our power." On the communication screen, Admiral Harrison continued speaking. "You have 10 seconds to begin your withdrawal. After that, we will consider you a hostile force." "You dare threaten the supremacy?" Kethvar shouted. "We have 500 warships. You have nothing but empty words." Harrison's expression grew sad. "Then you have made your choice." The transmission ended. For a moment, the bridge of the Zephyrian flagship was quiet. Then every alarm began to sound at once. "Sir! Massive energy spike detected!" screamed the sensor operator. "Multiple contacts appearing throughout the system." On the tactical display, red dots began appearing everywhere, hundreds of them, surrounding the Zephyrian fleet from all directions. Each dot represented a weapon platform more advanced than anything the Supremacy had ever built. "Where did they come from?" Kethvar demanded. "Unknown, sir. They seem to have been hidden somehow. Our sensors showed nothing there before." Kethvar stared at the display in growing horror. The red dots were not just scattered randomly. They formed a perfect sphere around his fleet. Every ship was targeted by multiple platforms. There was no escape route. "How many?" he whispered. "Over 300 weapon platforms, sir, and they're all pointed at us." For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Kethvar felt true fear. The humans had not been running away. They had been setting a trap, and he had flown his entire fleet right into it. "Emergency signals to all ships," he ordered. "Maximum shields. Prepare for combat." But deep in his heart, he already knew it was too late. The humans had been planning this for much longer than anyone had realized. They had studied supremacy, technology, and built weapons specifically designed to defeat it. The trap was set, and there was nowhere to run. "Sir, incoming transmission from the human admiral," reported the communications officer. Harrison's face appeared on screen once more. This time there was no sadness in his eyes, only cold determination. "Admiral Kethvar, you had your chance. Now you will learn why Earth has remained unconquered." The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, every person on the bridge could hear their own heartbeat. Outside, 300 hidden weapons turned toward the Zephyrian fleet. The battle was about to begin, and it would be over in seconds. The battle lasted exactly 4.7 seconds. Admiral Kethvar had time to see the first flash of light before his universe ended. Across space, hundreds of hidden weapon platforms fired at once, but these were not the energy beams or missiles that the Supremacy understood. These were weapons that worked on the deepest levels of reality itself. Dark matter cannons released streams of invisible particles that passed through the Zephyrian shields like they were not there. The shields had been designed to stop energy and normal matter. They could deflect plasma beams and kinetic projectiles. But dark matter was different. It barely interacted with normal matter at all, until human scientists had learned to control it. When the dark matter streams hit the alien ships, something terrible happened. The particles disrupted the bonds that held atoms together. Metal hulls simply ceased to exist. Not melted, not vaporized, but deleted from reality. Entire sections of ships disappeared, leaving perfect spherical holes where armor plating had been. The Supremacy's mighty dreadnoughts, each 3 miles long and carrying thousands of crew members, began to vanish piece by piece. Their massive hulls developed holes that grew larger with each second. Air rushed out into space, carrying screaming aliens with it. But the dark matter cannons were only the beginning. Quantum torpedo launchers fired their deadly cargo through folded space. The torpedoes did not travel from the weapon platforms to their targets. Instead, they simply appeared inside the enemy ships, bypassing all shields and armor. Each torpedo contained enough antimatter to power a small city or destroy a large building. When antimatter met normal matter inside the Zephyrian ships, the results were devastating. Pure energy explosions tore through vital systems. Engine rooms became blazing infernos. Command bridges filled with lethal radiation. Ships that had conquered worlds across the galaxy were gutted from the inside in seconds. Admiral Kethvar watched, his fleet die around him. The ship next to his flagship, a massive battlecruiser called the Eternal Victory, simply folded in on itself as gravitational weapons twisted space around it. The ship's hull crumpled like paper as artificial gravity fields compressed it into a ball of scrap metal. "Shields! Maximum power to shields!" he screamed. "Sir, our shields are at full power, but they're not stopping anything," replied his defensive systems officer. "These weapons are passing right through our barriers." The admiral stared at his tactical display in horror. Red symbols showed his ships being destroyed faster than the computer could update. 500 warships reduced to debris in seconds. His entire fleet, the pride of the supremacy, was being erased from existence. "How is this possible?" he whispered. His chief scientist, an old Zephyrian named Velthok, looked up from his readings with wide eyes. "Sir, these humans, they're using weapons that operate outside normal physics. They're manipulating fundamental forces that we barely understand." A gravitational wave hit the flagship, shaking the massive ship like a toy. The artificial gravity inside flickered, making everyone float for a moment before slamming back down. Warning lights flashed as the ship's structure groaned under impossible stresses. "Sir, hull breach on decks 12 through 30, reported damage control. "We're losing atmosphere on 15 levels." Kethvar felt his world collapsing around him. In 40 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. The humans had weapons that made his most advanced technology look like stone tools. They had studied the supremacy's weaknesses and built weapons specifically designed to exploit them. "Emergency transmission to Supremacy Command," he ordered. Tell them we were wrong about the humans." But even as he spoke, he knew the message would never be sent. A quantum torpedo had materialized inside the ship's communication center, destroying all long-range transmitters. The flagship was cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Another gravitational wave hit the ship, this one stronger than the first. The hull began to crack along stress lines. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut as entire sections were exposed to space. The ship that had been his pride and home for 20 years was dying around him. "Sir, we've lost main power," shouted the engineering officer. "Life support is failing. We have maybe 10 minutes of air left." 10 minutes. The admiral looked at his tactical display one more time. Of his 500 ships, only a handful remained, and they were dying fast. The humans had achieved something that should have been impossible. They had destroyed an entire supremacy fleet without losing a single ship of their own. "Sir, incoming transmission," reported the communications officer, his voice shaking. Admiral Harrison appeared on the main screen. Behind him, his bridge was calm and quiet. No damage, no casualties, no signs of battle at all. He looked at Kethvar with something that might have been pity. "Admiral, your fleet is finished," Harrison said calmly. "But you still live. I offer you this chance to send a message to your empire. Tell them what happened here. Tell them why they should leave Earth alone." Kethvar felt his pride crumble. This human admiral was offering him mercy, even after destroying everything he commanded. But what message could he send? Who would believe that primitive humans had annihilated the 47th Conquest Fleet? They will not believe," he said weakly. "Then make them believe," Harrison replied. "Your people need to understand that humanity is not their enemy. But we will not be their victims either. Tell them to find another path. The transmission ended. Around Kethvar, his flagship continued to die. Systems failed one by one. The lights dimmed as power ran out. In the distance, he could see the last few ships of his fleet being destroyed by weapons that should not exist. With trembling hands, he activated the emergency beacon. It was a simple device, designed to record a final message if a ship was about to be destroyed. The message would be found eventually by supremacy search teams. "This is Admiral Kethvar of the 47th Conquest Fleet," he said into the recorder. "We came to conquer a primitive world called Earth. We were wrong. These humans, they are not primitives. They are something far more dangerous. They have weapons that can destroy matter itself. They can bend gravity like we bend metal. They can make their attacks appear inside our ships." He paused as another section of the ship was torn away by gravitational forces. Through the gap, he could see Earth in the distance, still blue and peaceful. "The fleet is destroyed, all ships lost. The humans defeated us in seconds. Tell the Emperor. Tell him these beings are not to be underestimated. They are predators disguised as prey. Approach them with respect, or do not approach them at all." The recording device shut down as the ship's power finally failed. In the darkness, Admiral Kethvar waited for the end. Around him, the last remnants of the 47th Conquest Fleet drifted as silent debris. The battle was over. The mighty supremacy had learned a lesson that would echo across the galaxy. Humanity was no longer hiding. Far away on Earth, Admiral Harrison stood on his bridge watching the last enemy ship break apart. His crew worked quietly at their stations, already beginning the cleanup operations. Automated systems would collect the debris and ensure that no alien technology fell into the wrong hands. "Sir, all enemy vessels destroyed," reported his tactical officer. "No survivors detected." Harrison nodded sadly. He had hoped it would not come to this. But the supremacy had chosen the path of conquest, and humanity had chosen the path of survival. "Send word to Earth Command," he ordered. "The threat is eliminated. Begin Phase 2 of the contingency plan." Phase 2 would ensure that this victory was not just a single battle, but the beginning of a new era. The galaxy would learn that Earth was protected by more than just luck. The age of human hiding was over. The age of human guardianship had begun. Emperor Zalthek sat on his crystal throne in the heart of the supremacy's capital world. The massive chamber around him was filled with his most trusted advisors, military commanders, and scientists. But today, the usual confident voices were replaced by worried whispers and frightened silence. On the hologram table in front of them, the impossible played over and over again. The brief recording from Admiral Kethvar's flagship showed the 47th Conquest Fleet being destroyed in seconds. 500 of the Supremacy's finest warships simply erased from existence by weapons that should not work. "Play it again," the Emperor commanded, his voice echoing through the chamber. The hologram showed the same horrifying scene. Ships disappearing piece by piece as invisible forces tore them apart. Gravitational waves crushing massive hulls like paper. Explosions appearing. Inside vessels without any projectiles crossing space. In 4.7 seconds, an entire conquest fleet was reduced to drifting debris. General Mordan, the Supremacy's highest military commander, stood with his head bowed. "Your Majesty, we have confirmed the destruction. Search teams found the debris field exactly where Admiral Kethvar reported. No survivors, no intact technology to study." Emperor Zalthek had ruled the Supremacy for over a century. In that time, his forces had conquered thousands of worlds. No species had ever defeated them in open battle. Some had surrendered quickly, others had fought bravely but futilely. A few had hidden or run away. But none had ever achieved total victory against a supremacy fleet. Until now. "How?" the Emperor asked. "How did these humans do this?" Chief Scientist Velmore stepped forward, his multiple arms gesturing at data displays. Your Majesty, we have analyzed the limited recordings. The humans appear to have weaponized fundamental forces that we consider impossible to control. Dark matter manipulation, gravitational distortion, quantum tunneling effects. Are you telling me that these primitives have mastered sciences that our greatest minds consider theoretical? It appears so, Your Majesty. Their weapons operate on principles that bypass all known defensive technologies. Our shields, our armor, our electronic countermeasures. None of them can stop attacks that work at the subatomic level. Emperor Zalthek stood from his throne, his tall form casting shadows across the chamber. For 500 years, the supremacy had grown by conquest. They found weaker species and absorbed them into the empire. It was simple, efficient, and profitable. But these humans had changed everything. What do our intelligence services know about this species? He demanded. Intelligence Director Colwen activated a new hologram. Images of Earth appeared, showing cities, military bases, and space installations. Our previous reports indicated a primitive civilization with basic technology. Chemical rockets, nuclear weapons, simple electronics. We detected no energy shields, no advanced alloys, no faster-than-light capability. Then where did these weapons come from? Unknown, Your Majesty. Either our intelligence was completely wrong, or these humans have been hiding their true capabilities for decades, possibly centuries. The Emperor felt a chill run through his body. If the humans had been hiding advanced technology, what else might they have concealed? How many other species in the galaxy possessed secret weapons that could destroy supremacy fleets? Sir, we have another problem, General Morden said quietly. Word of the defeat is spreading throughout the Empire. Our subject species are beginning to ask questions. Emperor Zalthek understood immediately. The supremacy ruled through fear and the belief that resistance was impossible. If species learned that the mighty supremacy could be defeated, rebellions would start everywhere. How bad is it? He asked. 12 worlds have stopped sending tribute shipments. 6 colonial governors report increasing unrest. 3 star systems have gone completely silent. As if summoned by their conversation, an aide rushed into the chamber. Your Majesty, urgent message from the Outer Rim territories. The Cathari system has declared independence. They are refusing all supremacy authority. The Emperor closed his eyes. The Cathari were a proud species that had been conquered only 50 years ago. They had never fully accepted supremacy rule, and now they saw an opportunity. What did they say exactly? He asked. The aide read from a data pad. Earth endures. The supremacy bleeds. Freedom is possible. That was their entire message. Your Majesty. Emperor Zalthek felt his empire beginning to crack. The humans had not just destroyed a fleet. They had destroyed the myth of supremacy invincibility. Across the galaxy, species that had been forced into submission were remembering what freedom meant. Your Majesty, Intelligence Director Colwen spoke up. We have detected encrypted transmissions being sent to multiple star systems. The source appears to be somewhere in Earth's solar system. What kind of transmissions? Video recordings of the battle, along with messages encouraging resistance. The humans are actively spreading word of their victory. General Mordaunt stepped forward. Your Majesty, we must respond with force. If we allow this challenge to go unanswered, the entire empire could collapse. I recommend immediate mobilization of the First and Second Imperial fleets. To do what? The Emperor snapped. Send more ships to be destroyed by weapons we don't. Understand? How many fleets are you willing to lose before you admit we are outmatched? The chamber fell silent. No one in the Supremacy's leadership had ever heard their Emperor admit weakness before. Chief Scientist Velmore cleared his throat, nervously. Your Majesty, perhaps we should consider diplomatic contact. Diplomacy? General Mordaunt snarled. The Supremacy does not negotiate with inferior species. Are they inferior? Velmore asked quietly. They destroyed our fleet in seconds. They possess technology we cannot match. By what measure are they inferior to us? Emperor Zalthek returned to his throne, suddenly feeling very old. The weight of 5 centuries of conquest pressed down on him. The supremacy had grown powerful by being the strongest force in every conflict. But what happened when they met someone stronger? Show me the human admiral's message again, he commanded. The hologram displayed Admiral Harrison's final transmission to Admiral Kethvar. The human looked calm and controlled, even while destroying an entire fleet. His words were simple and direct. Tell them what happened here. Tell them why they should leave Earth alone. He offered mercy, the Emperor realized. Even after winning completely, he let our Admiral send a warning message. Yes, Your Majesty, Intelligence Director Colwen confirmed. The humans could have destroyed the flagship immediately. Instead, they gave Admiral Kethvar time to record his final report. Emperor Zalthek studied the human admiral's face. There was no hatred there, no desire for conquest, only a quiet determination to protect his people. It was not the expression of a bloodthirsty warrior, but of a guardian. They are not like us, he said slowly. They did not attack our worlds or demand our surrender. They simply defended their own territory. Your Majesty, General Mordan protested. They are still a threat to the Empire. No, the Emperor said firmly. We are a threat to them, and they have made it clear what happens to threats. For the first time in centuries, Emperor Zalthek faced a choice that could not be solved by force. He could escalate the conflict and risk losing everything, or he could try something the supremacy had never done before. He could admit that someone else was stronger. Prepare a diplomatic vessel, he ordered. Send envoys to Earth. It is time the supremacy learned to negotiate. The chamber erupted in shocked voices, but the Emperor raised his hand for silence. Across the galaxy, rebellions were spreading as species learned that the supremacy could be defeated. The old way of ruling through fear was ending. A new age was beginning, whether the supremacy was ready or not. And at the center of it all, a small blue planet called Earth waited to see what the galaxy would choose: cooperation or destruction. 6 months after the destruction of the 47th Conquest Fleet, a single Zephyrian vessel approached Earth's solar system. Unlike the massive warships that had come before, this ship was small and elegant, painted in the white and gold colors of diplomacy. It carried no weapons, only a message of peace and a request to talk. Admiral Harrison stood on the observation deck of Sanctuary Station, a massive space facility that humans had built in the asteroid belt. Through the transparent walls, he could see the diplomatic ship approaching slowly, its engines barely glowing. Behind him, representatives from 12 different alien species waited nervously for the negotiations to begin. These aliens were not enemies. They were former subjects of the supremacy who had declared independence after learning of humanity's victory. The Cathari, with their proud warrior culture. The gentle Vorthak, who had been enslaved for 3 centuries. The insectoid Gelti, whose homeworld had been strip-mined for resources. All of them had come to Earth seeking protection and alliance. Admiral, the supremacy vessel is requesting permission to dock, reported Captain Morrison, Harrison's aide. Grant permission, Harrison replied, but maintain full security protocols. I want every sensor watching them. The diplomatic meeting would take place in a neutral chamber designed specifically for interspecies contact. The room had adjustable gravity, atmospheric controls, and translation systems that could handle dozens of languages. Most importantly, it was surrounded by the same defensive systems that had destroyed the Conquest Fleet. Ambassador Velkoth of the Supremacy entered the chamber with a small group of advisors. He was a tall, elegant being with silver skin and multiple arms, dressed in robes that marked his high rank. But his usual proud bearing was replaced by careful humility. He had seen the recordings of what happened to warships that threatened Earth. Admiral Harrison greeted him with formal courtesy. Ambassador, welcome to human space. I hope we can find a peaceful solution to our differences. Velkoth bowed deeply, a gesture that would have been unthinkable from a supremacy representative just months ago. Admiral Harrison, I bring greetings from Emperor Zaltek and the sincere desire for peace between our peoples. The negotiations took place over several days. The supremacy had prepared carefully, studying everything they could learn about human culture and psychology. They had come not as conquerors, but as petitioners seeking to avoid further conflict. Let me be clear about our position, Harrison said during the first formal session. Humanity does not seek to conquer or rule other species. We want to be left alone to develop in peace. But we will not tolerate threats to Earth or attacks on defenseless civilizations. Ambassador Velkoth nodded carefully. We understand your position, Admiral. The Emperor has authorized me to discuss significant concessions to ensure peaceful coexistence. The talks were complex and sometimes heated. The supremacy was being forced to give up systems they had controlled for centuries. 12 star systems would be granted full independence under human protection. Enslaved species would be freed. Tribute payments would end. But the most important agreement was the establishment of protected zones throughout the galaxy. These would be regions of space where younger civilizations could develop without interference from advanced species. Any attempt to conquer or exploit these worlds would be met by human intervention. You are asking us to abandon the principles that built our empire, Velkoth said during one difficult session. We are asking you to evolve beyond them, Harrison replied firmly. The age of conquest is ending. Species that adapt to cooperation will prosper. Those that cling to domination will face the consequences. To demonstrate their commitment, the humans shared some of their defensive technologies with the freed species. Not the most advanced weapons, but shield designs and detection, systems that could protect against most threats. It was a clear message. Earth would help those who chose freedom over submission. The final signing ceremony took place on Sanctuary Station, with representatives from dozens of species present. Ambassador Velkoth and Admiral Harrison stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by beings who had once been enemies or subjects of the supremacy. Today marks the beginning of a new era, Harrison announced to the assembled crowd. No longer will the galaxy be ruled by fear and conquest. From this day forward, every species has the right to choose its own path. The treaty was officially called the Terran Accords, but history would remember it as the document that ended the Age of Empires. The supremacy would remain a major power, but they could no longer expand through force. Other species gained the protection they needed to govern themselves, but the real change went deeper than any written agreement. The defeat of the 47th Conquest Fleet had shattered the belief that advanced technology guaranteed victory. Species across the galaxy began to question their relationships with more powerful neighbors. Some sought independence, others formed new alliances based on mutual benefit rather than domination. Commander Sarah Chen, now promoted to Admiral, oversaw the expansion of humanity's Guardian Fleet. New ships were built using the most advanced technology Earth could produce. They patrolled the protected zones, ensuring that the treaties were enforced and that peaceful species could develop without fear. The supremacy tested the new boundaries several times in the first year. Each time, human ships appeared to enforce the agreements. The aliens learned quickly that humanity's commitment to protection was absolute. No conquered species would face extinction while Earth endured. Other major powers in the galaxy watched these developments with growing concern. The hegemony, the collective, and the Star Republic all realized that the balance of power had shifted permanently. None of them wanted to test humanity's defenses directly, but they began their own preparations for a changed galaxy. 5 years after the battle, Admiral Harrison stood once again on Sanctuary Station's observation deck. But now, instead of looking at a single diplomatic ship, he watched a massive spaceport filled with vessels from hundreds of species. Traders, diplomats, scientists, and refugees all came to human space seeking opportunity and protection. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Andromeda expedition," reported his communications officer. Harrison smiled. The expedition was humanity's first attempt to explore beyond the Milky Way galaxy. With their local region secured, humans were ready to discover what lay beyond the stars they knew. "Put it through," he ordered. The transmission showed Commander Kim aboard the exploration ship TDS Pioneer. Behind her, unknown stars gleamed through the viewports of humanity's most advanced vessel. "Admiral, we have made contact with 3 new civilizations in the Andromeda galaxy," Kim reported. "All of them are peaceful and interested in trade and cultural exchange. No signs of hostile empires or conquest fleets." Harrison nodded with satisfaction. The galaxy was vast, and there was always room for growth and discovery. But now that growth would happen through cooperation rather than conquest. The age of empires was ending, replaced by an age of alliance and mutual support. In the years that followed, the protected zones became centers of innovation and prosperity. Species that had been held back by supremacy rule began to flourish. New technologies were developed through cooperation between multiple civilizations. Art, literature, and scientific knowledge flowed freely between worlds. The supremacy itself began to change. Younger generations of Zephyrians questioned the old ways of conquest and domination. Reform movements gained power in their government. Some supremacy worlds even applied to join the protected zone system, seeking the prosperity that came with peaceful cooperation. Admiral Harrison, now elderly but still sharp, often reflected on how the galaxy had changed. The humans had never wanted to be galactic guardians. They had simply wanted to be left alone. But when forced to defend themselves, they had discovered that protection required vigilance and strength. The warning that Admiral Kethvar had tried to send to his empire had proven true in ways he never expected. Humanity was indeed predators, disguised as prey. But they were a very specific type of predator, one that hunted those who threatened the innocent and protected those who could not protect themselves. Earth's blue skies still looked peaceful from space, but now they were watched over by guardian fleets that ensured no species would ever again face the choice between submission and extinction. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and those who remembered would ensure it was never forgotten. The age of human hiding was over. The age of human guardianship would last as long as threats remained in the darkness between the stars. And in that darkness, other predators watched and waited, planning their own moves in the endless game of galactic power, but that would be a story for another day. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. Their massive ships traveled between the stars, keeping order with iron fists and powerful weapons. No one dared to challenge them. No one even thought about it anymore. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominator's Wrath. The ship was 5 miles long and carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. Like all Zephyrians, Vextar had dark blue skin and 4 arms. His yellow eyes watched the star maps with pride. 847 star systems bowed to his empire. Today would be no different from any other day. "Admiral," called scanner technician Krillith from his station. "I'm getting strange readings from Sector 779. Vextar barely looked up. Define strange. Krillith's claws clicked nervously on his controls. Space-time distortions near the helix. Nebula, something big is happening out there. The Admiral finally turned his attention to the young technician. Space-time distortions were serious business. The last time they had detected anything like this, an entire solar system had collapsed into a black hole. "Put it on the main screen," Vextar ordered. The massive display showed the Helix Nebula, a swirling cloud of gas and dust that had been empty space for centuries. But now something was different. Reality itself seemed to be bending and twisting like water in a storm. "Magnify," Vextar said. The image grew larger. The distortions were getting stronger. Whatever was causing them was getting closer to normal, space. Krillith's readings showed energy levels that shouldn't exist. Then it happened. Space tore open like fabric being ripped apart. A brilliant flash of light filled the screen. When it faded, something impossible floated in the void where empty space had been moments before. A ship. But this wasn't like any ship in the Imperial database. Zephyrian vessels were built for intimidation, massive, angular, covered in weapon ports and armor plating. This ship was different. It was sleek and smooth, like a hunting animal frozen in metal. Its hull gleamed with materials that reflected light in ways that hurt to look at. "Run a full scan," Vextar commanded. Krillith's hands flew over his controls. "Admiral, the readings don't make sense. The hull appears to be made of metals we can't identify. Energy signatures are completely unknown. And, sir," he paused, his voice dropping to a whisper, "the weapon systems don't match anything in our records." Vextar studied the mysterious vessel. It was about a mile long, much smaller than his, dreadnought, but something about it made his skin crawl. The ship seemed to absorb their scanner beams instead of reflecting them properly. "Any response to our scanning?" he asked. "None, sir. The ship is completely silent. No communications, no identification signals, nothing." The Admiral made his decision. For 3,000 years, the Empire had dealt with unknown ships the same way. Approach with overwhelming force, demand surrender, and crush any resistance. "Send Captain Zeklon's squadron to investigate," Vextar ordered. 12 ships should be more than enough to handle one primitive vessel." Captain Zeklon received his orders with the confidence of a warrior who had never lost a battle. His squadron consisted of 12 heavy cruisers, each one capable of destroying a small moon. As they approached the strange ship, Zeklon felt the familiar excitement of an easy victory. "Attention, unknown vessel," he broadcast on all frequencies. "You have entered Imperial space without permission. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in your immediate destruction." The alien ship remained silent. Zeklon waited exactly 60 seconds, as Imperial protocol demanded. When no response came, he smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "They want to do this the hard way," he told his crew. "Target their engines. Let's disable them first and ask questions later." His ships moved into attack formation, a perfect circle that had trapped thousands of enemy vessels over the centuries. The unknown ship sat in the center like prey in a web. "Fire warning shots," Zeklon commanded. 12 plasma cannons discharged at once, sending bolts of superheated energy toward the mysterious vessel. The shots were carefully aimed to miss by only a few hundred meters, close enough to show serious intent without causing damage. The energy bolts struck something invisible around the alien ship and simply vanished. Zeklon blinked in surprise. "What happened to our shots?" His weapons officer checked his readings twice before answering. "Sir, they appear to have been absorbed." "Absorbed? By what?" "Unknown, Captain. There's no visible shielding technology, but our plasma bolts just disappeared." For the first time in his military career, Captain Zeklon felt a flicker of uncertainty, but he pushed it down. The Empire had faced strange technologies before. Overwhelming firepower always won in the end. "All ships, target the alien vessel's center mass. Full power, fire when ready." This time, the plasma cannons charged to maximum power. Each shot could punch through a mountain. 12 of them firing together could crack a small asteroid in half. The energy beams struck the alien ship simultaneously and vanished completely. "Captain," his weapons officer called out, his voice shaking. "The alien vessel's energy readings just increased by 40%. Zeklon stared at his screens. It was impossible. Their most powerful weapons had not only failed to damage the enemy ship, they had somehow made it stronger. "Sir," his communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien vessel." "Put it through." A voice spoke in perfect Zephyrian, though the accent was strange and the tone was calm, almost bored. "You fired first. Stand down." Before Zeklon could respond, something small and fast shot out from the alien ship. His sensors tracked it for less than a second before it struck his flagship. The projectile punched through his shields as if they weren't there. It tore through his armor plating like paper. It passed completely through his ship from bow to stern, leaving a perfectly round hole 3 feet wide, no explosion, no secondary damage. Just a clean hole that went through every deck, every bulkhead, every system in its path. Emergency alarms screamed as atmosphere rushed out into space. His ship began to lose power as critical systems failed. In 5 seconds, a single shot from the alien vessel had reduced his mighty warship to a helpless wreck. "All ships! Emergency withdrawal!" Zeklon screamed into his communicator. "Return to the fleet immediately!" His remaining 11 ships broke formation and fled as fast as their engines could carry them. Behind them, the mysterious alien vessel sat motionless in space, waiting like a patient predator. Admiral Vexitar watched the retreat with growing horror. 12 Imperial warships had been sent to capture one unknown vessel. 11 had returned. In full flight, and the 12th was broadcasting emergency signals as it limped home with a hole punched clean through it. "Get me a full report from Captain Zeklon," Vexitar ordered, "and send a priority message to Imperial Command. We have a problem." As his communication officers worked frantically, Vexitar stared at the image of the alien ship on his main screen. For 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had been the apex predator of the galaxy. Today, they had met something that made their most powerful weapons look like toys. The game had changed, and Admiral Vexitar wasn't sure his empire was ready for whatever came next. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the UES Indomitable, watching 12 alien ships retreat into the distance. Her dark hair was pulled back in a military bun, and her brown eyes remained calm despite the situation. Around her, the bridge buzzed with quiet activity as her crew analyzed what had just happened. "Well, that was interesting," said Commander Rodriguez from the tactical station. He was a tall man with graying hair and scars on his hands from years of military service. "They really thought those plasma bolts would hurt us." Sarah nodded, but her expression remained serious. "We're not here to start a war, Rodriguez. We're lost, remember?" It had been 18 months since the Indomitable had attempted an experimental faster-than-light jump. The new drive system was supposed to cut travel time between Earth and the outer colonies by 70%. Instead, something had gone wrong during the test flight. Very wrong. Space had twisted around them like a pretzel. The ship's computers had shown readings that defied physics. When everything finally stopped spinning, they found themselves in a completely unknown part of the galaxy, thousands of light years from Earth. Dr. Okafor, the ship's chief science officer, had been working for months to understand what happened. The brilliant woman from Nigeria had 3 degrees in theoretical physics, but even she couldn't explain how their experimental drive had thrown them so far from home. "Captain," called Lieutenant Park from the communications station. "I'm picking up massive amounts of radio chatter from the alien fleet. The computer is trying to translate, but their language is complex." Sarah walked over to Park's station. The young Korean-American officer was one of the best linguists in the Earth fleet. If anyone could make sense of alien communications, it was her. "What are they saying?" Sarah asked. Park frowned at her screen. "From what I can understand, they're calling us impossible and unknown technology. They seem very upset that their weapons didn't work. Can you translate our response?" "Already working on it, Captain. The computer has identified their basic language structure. I should be able to send a message they can understand." Sarah considered their options. The Indomitable was alone in hostile territory, outnumbered by millions. These aliens clearly controlled a large part of this galaxy, and they didn't seem friendly to strangers. But humans had one advantage that had served them well throughout history. They learned fast. Rodriguez, what's your assessment of their military capabilities? Sarah asked. The tactical officer pulled up his analysis on the main screen. Primitive but powerful, Captain. Their ships are big and heavily armed, but they rely on brute force rather than strategy. Their formation was textbook, probably unchanged for centuries. No creativity, no adaptation. Sarah studied the data. The alien ships were indeed massive, some of them 5 times larger than the Indomitable. But size wasn't everything. Human military doctrine had evolved through countless wars on Earth, where survival depended on being smarter, faster, and more adaptable than the enemy. What about their technology? She asked. Dr. Okafor looked up from her science station. The tall woman adjusted her glasses before speaking. Their weapons are plasma-based, probably very effective against conventional armor, but our adaptive shielding is designed to absorb and redirect energy attacks. The more they shoot at us, the stronger our defenses become. And their ships? Heavy armor, powerful engines, but no signs of advanced defensive systems. I don't think they've ever faced an enemy that could actually threaten them. Sarah nodded. That matched what she was thinking. These aliens had probably been the dominant power in this part of the galaxy for so long that they'd grown complacent. They'd never needed to innovate or adapt because nothing had ever challenged them. Until now. Captain, Lieutenant Park called. Out. The alien fleet is regrouping. They're calling in reinforcements. Sarah wasn't surprised. Bullies always called for backup when they met someone who could fight back. How many ships are we talking about? She asked. Park listened to the alien communications for a moment. From what I can translate, they're assembling something called Battle Group Omega. Sounds like at least 200 ships, possibly more. Rodriguez whistled softly. 200 to 1. Those aren't good odds. They are if the one is us, Sarah replied calmly. Dr. Okafor, how are our weapon systems? Fully operational, Captain. The quantum torpedoes are charged, plasma cannons are online, and the kinetic railgun has plenty of ammunition. Sarah walked back to her command chair, thinking carefully. They had 3 options: run, hide, or fight. Running would only delay the inevitable. These aliens controlled the local space lanes, and the Indomitable would eventually be found. Hiding was impossible with so many enemy ships searching for them. That left fighting. Rodriguez, I want you to analyze their fleet composition. Look for weaknesses we can exploit. Already on it, Captain. Their command ships are larger and more heavily armed, but they're also slower and less maneuverable. If we can take out their leadership early, the rest might fall into chaos. Dr. Okafor, what's the status of our experimental systems? The science officer smiled for the first time since the aliens appeared. The micro-jump drive is working perfectly. We can teleport short distances almost instantly. Our phase torpedoes can pass through their shields entirely. And the adaptive plasma cannons can change frequency faster than their sensors can track. Sarah felt a familiar calm settle over her. This was what she'd trained for her entire life. Command decisions under impossible pressure. The crew of the IEO Indomitable was the best Earth had to offer. Scientists, soldiers, and explorers all rolled into one. Lieutenant Park, open a channel to the alien fleet. Channel open, Captain. Sarah stood and spoke clearly into the communication system. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Indomitable. You fired on us without provocation. We responded with minimal force to protect ourselves. We have no desire for conflict, but we will defend ourselves if attacked again. She paused, then added something that would confuse the aliens for years to come. We come from a place where freedom isn't granted by emperors. It's earned by those brave enough to fight for it. The response came quickly, translated by the ship's computer into English. Surrender now or be destroyed. The Empire does not negotiate with primitives. Sarah looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. These were men and women who had volunteered for a dangerous experimental mission. knowing they might never see Earth again. They'd been lost in space for 18 months, but they hadn't given up hope. They were explorers, scientists, and warriors, the best humanity had to offer. "Well," she said with a slight smile, "I guess they want to do this the hard way." She turned to Rodriguez. "Begin combat preparations. All crew to battle stations." Red lights began flashing throughout the ship as the crew prepared for war. In the weapons bay, Chief Petty Officer Martinez loaded quantum torpedoes with practiced efficiency. In engineering, Commander Kim rerouted power to the shield generators and weapons systems. "Captain," Dr. Okafor called out, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures approaching. The alien fleet is much larger than we thought." Sarah watched the tactical display as hundreds of red dots appeared on the screen, all heading their way. Any reasonable person would be terrified. Instead, Sarah felt the familiar calm that came before battle. "Rodriguez, are you ready?" "Weapons charged and targeting systems locked. We're as ready as we'll ever be." "Then let's show them what humans can do when we're cornered." Admiral Vextar stood before the massive tactical display in his command center, watching 200 Imperial warships move into position around the alien vessel. Battlegroup Omega was the largest fleet he had assembled in 50 years of service. 3 dreadnoughts, 30 heavy cruisers, and over 100 support vessels, enough firepower to conquer an entire star system. "Admiral," reported his fleet coordinator, "all ships are in position. The alien vessel is completely surrounded." Vextar nodded with satisfaction. Whatever tricks this unknown ship possessed, it couldn't possibly stand against such overwhelming force. The Empire had used this tactic for millennia: surround the enemy, demonstrate superior numbers, and watch them surrender. "Open a channel. To all ships," he commanded. "Today, we face an enemy that dares to defy Imperial might. Show them what happens to those who challenge the Zephyrian Empire." On the Indomitable, Captain Chen watched the alien fleet take their positions. The tactical display showed red dots forming a perfect sphere around her ship, a classic encirclement maneuver that would work well against conventional vessels. "They really like their formations, don't they?" Rodriguez commented from his station. "Standard Imperial doctrine," replied Dr. Okafor, who had been studying the alien military data. "Surround the enemy, overwhelm with superior numbers, accept surrender. It's probably worked for them for thousands of years." Sarah smiled grimly. "Too bad we didn't read their manual." She turned to address her crew. "All hands, this is the captain. We're outnumbered 200 to 1 by an enemy that has never lost a battle. They expect us to surrender or die trying to fight their way. Today we're going to teach them something new." In the engineering section, Commander Kim had rerouted power from non-essential systems to weapons and shields. The ship's experimental fusion reactors hummed with barely contained energy. "Captain," called Chief Martinez from the weapons bay, "all torpedo tubes loaded. Quantum warheads armed and ready. Rodriguez, target their command ships first. We need to break their coordination before they can organize properly." The tactical officer's hands flew over his controls. "Target locks acquired on 3 dreadnoughts and 12 command cruisers. Firing solution ready. Fire when ready." The first surprise came when the Indomitable attacked in all directions at once. Instead of trying to break through the encirclement at one point, Sarah had decided to engage the entire enemy fleet simultaneously. Quantum torpedoes phased through normal space, passing through the alien shields as if they didn't exist. The warheads materialized inside enemy hulls and detonated, tearing the massive ships apart from within. At the same time, the ship's plasma cannons began firing in rapid succession. But these weren't ordinary energy weapons. The adaptive plasma system changed frequency with each shot, making it impossible for enemy shields to adjust. Each blast burned through armor that had withstood centuries of conventional warfare. "Micro-jump. In 3 seconds," Rodriguez announced. The Indomitable vanished from the center of the alien formation and reappeared behind one of the dreadnoughts. Before the massive ship could turn to face this new threat, 3 quantum torpedoes struck its engine section. The dreadnought's rear half simply disappeared in a brilliant flash of light. "Jump again," Sarah ordered. The human ship teleported to a new position, appearing above a cluster of enemy cruisers. Kinetic railgun rounds, accelerated to 15% of light speed, punched through their hulls like bullets through paper. Admiral Vextar watched in growing horror as his fleet was systematically destroyed. The alien ship moved like nothing he had ever seen, appearing and disappearing faster than his sensors could track. His most powerful vessels were being torn apart by weapons that seemed to ignore every law of physics he knew. "All ships, focus fire on the alien vessel," he screamed into his communicator. The remaining Imperial ships turned their weapons toward the Indomitable, filling space with plasma bolts and missile barrages. But the human ship's adaptive shielding absorbed the energy attacks, growing stronger with each hit. The missiles were intercepted by point defense systems that tracked hundreds of targets simultaneously. "Captain," Dr. Okafor reported, "our shields are at 130% power. Their weapons are actually helping us." Sarah nodded. Human military technology had been designed for survival in a hostile universe. Every system had backups. Every weapon was designed to adapt to new threats. Every defense was built to turn enemy attacks into advantages. "Rodriguez, status report." The tactical officer checked his displays. 43 enemy ships destroyed, 15 severely damaged. No damage to us yet. Time for something special. Target their largest dreadnought with a full kinetic barrage. The Indomitable's main railgun charged to maximum power. The weapon was designed to punch through asteroid armor for mining operations, but it worked just as well against enemy ships. A tungsten rod weighing 50 tons shot out at nearly light speed. The projectile struck the dreadnought's forward hull and kept going, tearing through deck after deck of armor and equipment. The massive ship broke in half, its 2 pieces spinning away into space. But the real shock came when the human ship's computer system began broadcasting on all Imperial frequencies. Lieutenant Park had been busy during the battle, analyzing alien communications and preparing a surprise. "Attention all Imperial forces," the translated message began. "Your weapons cannot harm us. Your tactics are predictable. Your empire is built on fear, not strength. Any ship that wishes to surrender will be allowed to leave safely." The psychological impact was immediate. Imperial crews had been taught that their empire was invincible, their technology supreme, their tactics unbeatable. Now they watched their most powerful ships being destroyed by a single enemy vessel that seemed to treat their attacks as minor annoyances. Some of the smaller ships began to retreat without orders. Their captains had never faced an enemy that could fight back effectively, and the sight of burning dreadnoughts shattered their confidence. "All ships maintain formation," Admiral Vextar commanded. "Anyone who retreats will be executed for cowardice." But fear was stronger than military discipline. More ships began to flee as the Indomitable continued its methodical destruction of the Imperial fleet. Commander Rodriguez targeted another group of cruisers. "Captain, I'm reading massive power fluctuations in their largest ship. I think their admiral is preparing some kind of superweapon." Sarah studied the tactical display. The enemy flagship was indeed charging what looked like a planet-killer beam. It was probably their final desperate attempt to destroy the human ship. "Dr. Okafor, can our shields handle that level of energy?" The science officer ran quick calculations. "Probably not, Captain. That weapon is designed to crack planets. Even our adaptive shielding has limits." "Then we don't try to stop it. Rodriguez, prepare for emergency micro-jump. When that weapon fires, I want us behind their flagship." "Understood, Captain." The Imperial superweapon discharged with enough energy to destroy a small moon. But when the beam reached the Indomitable's position, the ship was no longer there. Instead, it had teleported directly behind the flagship. "Fire everything," Sarah ordered. Quantum torpedoes, plasma cannons, and kinetic projectiles struck the flagship simultaneously. The massive ship, weakened by the energy discharge from its own superweapon, collapsed under the assault. Admiral Vexitar's final transmission was a scream of rage and disbelief. The remaining Imperial ships fled in panic, abandoning the battlefield. To the single human vessel that had destroyed their entire battle group, Dr. Okafor looked up from her science station. "Captain, I'm detecting something interesting in the wreckage. The alien ships contain databases with star charts, fleet positions, and communications codes." Sarah smiled. "Download everything you can. It's time we learned more about our new neighbors." As the Indomitable collected data from the destroyed fleet, Sarah realized their situation had changed completely. They were no longer just lost explorers trying to find their way home. They had become players in a galactic conflict they didn't fully understand. But whatever challenges lay ahead, the crew of the Indomitable had proven something important. Humans might be outnumbered, but they were far from outmatched. News of the defeat traveled across the Zephyrian Empire faster than their fastest ships. Emperor Thulmas sat on his crystal throne in the heart of the imperial capital, reading reports that made no sense. One alien ship had destroyed battle. Group Omega, 200 of his finest warships reduced to floating scrap metal in less than an hour. The Emperor was ancient by Zephyrian standards, having ruled for 800 years. His blue skin had darkened with age, and his forearms moved slowly as he gestured for his advisors to approach. In all his centuries of rule, nothing like this had ever happened. "Explain to me," he said in a voice like grinding stone, "how one primitive vessel destroyed an entire battle group." General Korthuk, the Empire's highest military commander, stepped forward nervously. "Your Majesty, the reports are difficult to believe. The alien ship appears to possess technology far beyond our understanding." Technology? The Emperor's yellow eyes blazed with anger. "We have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. Our weapons can crack planets. Our ships are the largest ever built. What technology could possibly threaten us?" The general showed him tactical recordings from the battle. "They can appear and disappear at will, Your Majesty. Their weapons pass through our shields completely, and their defenses grow stronger when we attack them." Emperor Thulmas watched the recordings with growing disbelief. The alien ship moved like a living thing, striking with precision and vanishing before his forces could respond. It was unlike anything in the Imperial database. "Where did they come from?" he demanded. "Unknown, Your Majesty. They appeared from nowhere near the Helix Nebula. We have no record of their species or their homeworld." The Emperor stood from his throne, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. "Find their homeworld. Find their fleet. Find everything about them. And when you do, we will show them what happens to those who defy the Empire." Meanwhile, aboard the Indomitable, Captain Chen and her crew were learning disturbing things about their new neighbors. Dr. Okafor had spent days analyzing the data recovered from the Imperial ships, and what she found painted a picture of an empire built on conquest and oppression. "Captain," she reported during the morning briefing, "the Zephyrian Empire controls 847 star systems. They've conquered dozens of intelligent species over the past 3 millennia. Sarah studied the star charts on the main display. What happened to the conquered species? Slavery, mostly. Some were wiped out entirely. Others were reduced to servant races with no rights or freedoms. Commander Rodriguez looked up from his tactical analysis. "Captain, I'm seeing massive fleet movements throughout Imperial space. They're mobilizing everything they have." "How massive?" "Over 10,000 ships, including their entire dreadnought fleet. They're also activating reserve forces that haven't been used in centuries." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. 10,000 ships against one. Even with their technological advantages, those were impossible odds. "Any idea what they're planning?" she asked. Lieutenant Park had been monitoring Imperial communications. "From what I can translate, they're conducting massive searches throughout their territory. They're looking for our homeworld. They think we're the advance guard of a larger fleet," Dr. Okafor added. They can't conceive of a single ship operating alone. Sarah considered their options. The Empire was mobilizing for total war against an enemy they couldn't find. Eventually, their search would expand beyond Imperial space, and they might actually discover Earth. Billions of innocent humans would face the same fate as all the other species the Empire had conquered. Dr. Okafor, any progress on figuring out how we got here? The science officer shook her head. I'm still working on it, Captain. The experimental drive created some kind of space-time distortion, but I can't replicate the effect. For now, we're stuck here. Captain, Lieutenant Park interrupted, I'm picking up a priority transmission from Imperial Command. They're ordering all forces to converge on the Cathara system. What's at Cathara? Park translated quickly. It's a civilian space station. Apparently, it's been harboring refugees from Imperial oppression. The Emperor has ordered its complete destruction as an example to other systems. Sarah felt her jaw clench. Throughout human history, bullies had always targeted the innocent when they couldn't catch their real enemies. The Empire was going to murder thousands of civilians just to make a point. How long until the Imperial fleet reaches Cathara? She asked. Rodriguez checked the tactical data. At their current speed, about 72 hours. Dr. Okafor looked up from her station. Captain, Cathara Station houses over 50,000 civilians, men, women, children from a dozen different species. If the Imperial fleet attacks... She didn't need to finish. Everyone on the bridge understood what would happen. Set course for the Cathara system, Sarah ordered. Captain, Commander Kim spoke up from the engineering station. That's exactly what they want us to do. They're using those civilians as bait. Sarah turned to face her crew. She saw uncertainty in some faces, determination in others. These were good people who had signed up to explore the galaxy, not fight wars. But sometimes the universe didn't give you the choices you wanted. You're right. Kim, it's obviously a trap. They can't beat us in open space, so they're trying to force us into a position where we have to fight on their terms. She paused, looking at each of her officers. But we can't let them murder 50,000 innocent people just to get to us. That's not who we are, Dr. Okafor spoke quietly. Captain, even if we win the battle, we'll be revealing our position to the entire Imperial fleet. Every ship they have will converge on Cathara. I know, but here's the thing about humans. We don't abandon people who need help, even when it's not smart, even when it's dangerous, even when it might get us killed. Sarah stood and addressed her entire crew over the ship's communication system. All hands, this is the captain. In 72 hours, the Imperial fleet will attack a civilian station, full of refugees. They're using innocent people as bait to draw us into a trap. We're going to spring that trap, save those civilians, and show the Empire what happens when they threaten helpless people. She paused, then continued. I won't lie to you. This will probably be our last battle. We'll be outnumbered thousands to one, with no chance of escape. Anyone who wants to object can speak now. The communication channel remained silent for a long moment. Then Chief Martinez's voice came through from the weapons bay. Captain, the crew has a message for you. Go ahead, Chief. We didn't come this far just to watch innocents die. Let's go show these aliens why you never corner a human. Similar messages came from every section of the ship. The crew of the Indomitable had made their choice. They would rather die fighting for what was right than live with the knowledge that they could have saved innocent lives and chose not to. Sarah felt a surge of pride in her crew. This was what made humans special. Not their technology or their weapons, but their willingness to sacrifice for others. Rodriguez, begin combat preparations. Dr. Okafor, I need everything you can tell me about Cathara Station and the surrounding space. Already working on it, Captain. The station is located in an asteroid field, which might give us some tactical advantages. How so? The asteroids will limit the Imperial fleet's ability to surround us. They'll have to approach through specific channels, which means we can predict their movements. Sarah smiled grimly. Good. If we're going to die, let's make sure we take as many of them with us as possible. As the Indomitable changed course toward Cathara, Emperor Thulmas received confirmation that his plan was working. The alien ship was heading directly into his trap, just as he had hoped. "Your Majesty," General Korthuk reported, "the alien vessel will arrive at Cathara in approximately 70 hours. Admiral Zekmor is already in position with the 7th Fleet." The Emperor smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Excellent. This time we will be ready for their tricks. 8,000 ships should be more than enough to destroy one alien vessel, no matter what technology they possess." But as the Emperor made his plans, he had no idea what he was really dealing with. Humans had been fighting impossible odds since they first climbed down from the trees on Earth. They had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and the harsh vacuum of space itself. The crew of the Indomitable was about to remind the galaxy why humans were the most dangerous species in the universe when they had nothing left to lose. The Cathara system looked like a graveyard when the Indomitable arrived. The civilian space station floated among a field of broken asteroids, its lights flickering weakly in the darkness. Around it, 8,000 Imperial warships waited in. Perfect formation, like vultures circling dying prey. Emperor Thulmas himself had come to witness the destruction of the alien vessel. His massive flagship, the Eternal Dominion, sat at the center of the fleet like a metal mountain. The ship was 10 miles long and carried weapons that could destroy entire moons. "The alien vessel has arrived," reported Admiral Zekmor from the bridge of his command ship. "Just as you predicted, Your Majesty," the Emperor smiled with satisfaction. "Begin the attack, but leave the alien ship for last. I want them to watch as we destroy the station and everyone on it." Captain Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, studying the massive Imperial fleet. She had never seen so many warships in one place. The tactical display showed thousands of red dots surrounding Cathara Station like a swarm of angry insects. "Dr. Okafor, what's the status of the station?" she asked. The science officer checked her readings. 53,000. Civilians aboard, Captain. Multiple species. Humans would call them refugees fleeing Imperial oppression. Their defenses are minimal. "Rodriguez, assessment?" The tactical officer shook his head grimly. 8,000 ships, including 12 super dreadnoughts. They have enough firepower to glass a planet. This isn't a battle, Captain. It's an execution. Sarah nodded calmly. She had known this moment would come since they first encountered the Empire. Sometimes the right choice was also the impossible choice. "Dr. Okafor, I need you to work a miracle. Can you evacuate the station?" "Not all of them, Captain. Our emergency life support can handle maybe 5,000 people, but 50,000 is impossible." "Then evacuate who you can. Rodriguez, prepare for the worst fight of our lives." But Dr. Okafor had been thinking about their situation during the journey to Cathara. As the ship's chief scientist, she had been analyzing the space-time distortions that brought them here. What she discovered changed everything. "Captain," she said quietly, "I need to tell you something about how we got here." Sarah turned to face the science officer. "Go ahead." "The experimental drive didn't just move us through space, it moved us through time. We're not just visitors from another star system, we're visitors from the future." The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. "How far in the future?" Sarah asked. "Based on stellar positions and radioactive decay readings, approximately 400 years. We come from a time when humanity has already discovered faster-than-light travel and found this galaxy conquered by the Zephyrian Empire." Commander Rodriguez stared at her. "You're saying we're from their future?" "More than that. I believe our arrival here is what causes humanity to eventually develop FTL technology. We're creating a stable time loop." Sarah felt her mind racing. If Dr. Okafor was right, then their presence here wasn't an accident. It was destiny. "Captain," Lieutenant Park interrupted, "the Imperial fleet is beginning their attack on the station." The main display showed plasma bolts and missiles streaming toward Cathara Station. The small defensive platforms tried to fight back, but they were overwhelmed in seconds. "All hands, battle stations," Sarah commanded. "Dr. Okafor, begin emergency evacuation of the station. Rodriguez, target their command ships." The Indomitable shot forward into the Imperial fleet like an arrow into a forest. Quantum torpedoes phased through enemy shields, striking command vessels and communication arrays. The ship's micro-jump drive allowed it to appear and disappear throughout the battlefield, hitting targets and vanishing before the enemy could respond. But this time, the Empire was ready with new tactics. They had learned from their previous defeats. "All ships, fire continuously," Emperor Thulmas ordered. "Don't try to target the alien vessel. Fill space with so much energy that it has nowhere to hide." Thousands of plasma cannons discharged simultaneously, turning the space around Cathara Station into a storm of deadly energy. The Indomitable's adaptive shields absorbed what they could, but even human technology had limits. "Shields down to 60%, Dr. Okafor reported. "We're taking more damage than we can absorb." Sarah made a desperate decision. "Rodriguez, target their superweapon." The Emperor's flagship carried a planet-killer beam designed to crack worlds. If she could, turn that weapon against the Imperial fleet itself. "Understood, Captain, but we'll have to get very close to their flagship." "Do it." The Indomitable micro-jumped directly toward the Eternal Dominion, appearing just above the massive ship's hull. Kinetic railgun rounds punched through the flagship's armor, targeting the superweapon's power systems. But instead of disabling the weapon, Sarah had a different plan. "Dr. Okafor, can you overload their superweapon?" The science officer's eyes widened as she understood. "Captain, if I destabilize their power core, the explosion will destroy everything within 1,000 kilometers. Including us? Especially us." Sarah looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. These brave men and women had followed her, across impossible distances, through battles that should have killed them all. Now she was asking them to make the ultimate sacrifice. "All hands," she announced over the ship's communication system. "This is the captain. In 60 seconds, we're going to overload the enemy's superweapon. The explosion will destroy their entire fleet and save the civilians on Cathara Station. It will also destroy us." She paused, her voice growing stronger. "We came from a future where humanity explored the stars and found a galaxy ruled by tyrants. Today we change that future. Today we show every oppressed being in this galaxy that freedom is worth fighting for." The response came immediately from every section of the ship. "Aye, Captain." Dr. Okafor worked frantically at her station, using the ship's advanced computers to hack into the Imperial superweapon. "Almost there, Captain. 30 seconds." But before she could complete the overload, something unexpected happened. "Lieutenant." Park looked up from her communications station with tears in her eyes. "Captain, I'm receiving thousands of transmissions from across the galaxy. The news of our battles has spread. Dozens of star systems are declaring independence from the Empire. The main display showed priority messages from worlds the Empire had conquered centuries ago. The Andraki republics had declared their freedom. The Talon mining colonies had expelled their imperial governors. Even some Zephyrian worlds were joining the rebellion. "Captain," Park continued, "they're calling us the Liberation Fleet. They think we're the advance force of a massive human armada." Sarah realized what was happening. Their small acts of defiance had sparked something much larger. The galaxy was rising up against its oppressors, inspired by the example of one human ship that refused to surrender. "Dr. Okafor, belay the superweapon overload," she ordered. "Captain, we don't need to die today. We just need to escape and let the galaxy think we're part of a larger force." "But how do we escape 8,000 ships?" Sarah smiled for the first time since the battle began. "The same way we got here. Dr. Okafor, can you recreate the space-time distortion from our original accident?" The science officer checked her readings quickly. "Theoretically, yes, but I have no idea where or when it would send us." "Anywhere is better than here." do it. As Dr. Okafor began the complex calculations needed to tear open space-time itself, Sarah broadcast one final message on all Imperial frequencies. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human starship Indomitable. To every world, every species, every individual under Imperial rule, you are not alone anymore. Freedom cannot be destroyed by tyrants. It lives in the heart of everyone brave enough to fight for it. The liberation of this galaxy has begun. Space, twisted around the Indomitable as Dr. Okafor's experimental drive activated. Reality bent and folded like origami as the human ship vanished from the Cathara system, leaving behind a galaxy in revolution. Emperor Thulmas watched in fury as his prey escaped, but the damage was already done. Across his empire, worlds that had been peaceful for centuries erupted in rebellion. His military was stretched thin, trying to contain uprisings on 1,000 different worlds. The Zephyrian Empire, which had ruled unopposed for 3 millennia, began to crumble as its subjects remembered what freedom felt like. Years later, when the last Imperial forces had been driven from the galaxy, historians would debate whether the humans of the Indomitable were real or just legend. Some claimed they were time travelers from the future. Others insisted they were advanced aliens who chose to help the oppressed. But in the end, it didn't matter where they came from or where they went. What mattered was that they had shown the galaxy something it had almost forgotten, that one small group of people fighting for what was right could change the fate of billions. Captain Sarah Chen's final log entry, recovered centuries later from a damaged Imperial database,